Have you noticed all the millionaires that surround you every single day? Chances are, you haven't, because many millionaires don't appear wealthy at all. They may actually appear broke intentionally. So, instead of wearing designer suits, fancy dresses, and high-end shoes, cruising around in luxury cars, they look the same as people like you and me. If you've believed up until this point that millionaires spend freely and without consideration, you'd be surprised to see how they actually spend their money and what percentage of their income is allocated to expenses that you and I both have. In fact, most people would really benefit from adopting many of the spending habits I'm about to share. Make sure to watch until the end so you don't miss even a single one. Thomas Corley, the author of Rich Habits, conducted a study of millionaires over a 5-year period where he sampled over 200 millionaires and analyzed their career, personality traits, and how they spend their money. They all had net liquid assets of $3.2 million or more, which includes cash, bank deposits, and investments that can quickly be converted to cash, such as shares of stock. They also had an annual gross income of $160,000 or more. Through his research, Corley found that there are generally 4 very different types of millionaires. The big company climber, someone who works for a large company and devotes all of their time and energy in advancing their corporate career until they find themselves in an executive position with a very high salary. The virtuoso, they are among the best at what they do and they're paid a premium for their knowledge and expertise. Formal education, including advanced degrees often in law or medicine, is usually a requirement for this second type of millionaire. The dreamer entrepreneur. These people are pursuing their dream, such as starting their own business, becoming an actor, musician, or author. Dreamers are passionate and love their work, and those efforts reward them financially. The fact that they're entrepreneurs makes them unique in that they have no cap in their potential income when compared to an employee. The saver investor. It doesn't matter what their day job is, how high or low their income is, what credentials they have, or what opportunities are presented to them. These individuals prioritize saving and investing consistently, and they're always looking for smart ways to build wealth. This category of millionaires is most relatable to the average person, and they show that becoming a millionaire is a possibility for anyone, regardless of their occupation. It's common to think of someone who's a millionaire as a higher-up at a Fortune 500 company, or perhaps it was someone who had an idea of a lifetime and was able to build an incredibly successful business. The truth is that most millionaires were able to reach the $1 million threshold by just being an average person in the saver investor category. Being a saver investor and becoming a millionaire has the fewest barriers to entry because you don't need to be a genius, earn extensive degrees, or work unreasonably long hours. They don't take huge investment risks, but instead put their money in proven investments with a track record of growth. There are no prerequisites to becoming a saver investor millionaire. It's possible for anyone, whether or not they graduated from high school or came from poverty, to get on the right track immediately and begin their journey to becoming wealthy. A great example of this is my parents. Neither ever made more than $80,000 a year and only have one college diploma between the two of them. However, where they lacked an income, they made up for in solid savings practices and patience. Now, after working for 40 years, saving and investing, they have a few $1 million to enjoy in retirement while never having had to overextend themselves to earn a massive income in the process. Corley found that in order to become a millionaire by being a part of the Saver Investor Group, you should aim to keep your expenses at 80% or below your take-home pay. He found that saver investors aimed to save at least 20% or more of their income and religiously invested that money by implementing a frugal mentality and making it a priority to invest. The process of becoming a millionaire is quite simple, and this is the most common way people in Corley's study got there. So, how do these savers and investors categorize their expenses to remain frugal and avoid reckless spending? Good question. So let's dive into how they allocated their monthly income in order to reach millionaire status and how you can do the same. First is housing. The largest chunk of most everyone's budget is their housing expense. This could be because individuals often buy too much house for their income, or the rent they take on is simply too expensive, plus they are unwilling to live with roommates or make other sacrifices. Consequently, they end up spending most of their paycheck on keeping a roof over their head. The saver investor millionaires don't go wild when it comes to this expense. They keep their housing costs at 25% or less of their monthly take-home pay. When you're content with a small home or apartment, it can greatly reduce not only your rent or mortgage but utilities and other costs that go along with a large space. These individuals are also willing to sacrifice when it comes to location. Instead of insisting that they live in a prime spot in the city, they know the importance of frugality when it comes to housing, and they know that settling for something not quite as desirable will pay off. Overspending in this category makes it nearly impossible to save and invest aggressively. And if you agree, let me know by hitting that like button below. However, I know what you're thinking right now. Homes and rent are incredibly expensive right now. There's no way it could only make up 25% of my budget, and this is a valid concern. In the last few years, the cost of housing has skyrocketed, whether you have bought or rent. So here's what I'll say. If you are modest in the accommodations you assume and end up spending 30% of your income, that's okay. Now, is it ideal for growing your wealth? No, but keep in mind that Tom Corley's study was done quite a few years ago, and times have certainly changed. However, the core principle hasn't. The main takeaway is that millionaires spend as required with respect to their living accommodations and not based on social norms or the desire to show off. So as such, you should adopt that same ideology too, especially if you're taking the saver investor path. Next, we have food and home items. Millionaires, just like us, need to eat and wash their clothes, so part of their monthly incomes will be allocated towards these things. However, at just 15% or less of their net pay, they aren't ordering in every night or going out to expensive restaurants weekly, but are instead also being mindful as to how much money they're spending in this area. This can also include managing how much food you waste, which most people don't realize can cost them upwards of $100 a month. Then we have cars. Millionaires in Tom Corley's study spent just 5% or less of their net pay on transportation. Now, this might shock you as transportation is the second largest expense for the average family, coming in just behind housing. However, the saver investor millionaires studied spend less than 5% of their take-home pay on transportation. This includes monthly car payments, insurance, gas, tolls, registration fees, repairs, and maintenance. Even though millionaires occasionally have expensive cars, it doesn't mean they're spending a large chunk of their income on them. Now, I know you're probably wondering how in the hell you could get down to a 5% car expense, and here are a few ways you can work towards this amount. First, you need to ditch your car payment. Saving up money to buy a new or used car eliminates a major cash expenditure every month. Second, take the bus where you can, such as when you commute to work. Finally, be a responsible driver. The better you treat your car, the fewer repairs it will need. And if you can keep your car for 10 or more years, you'll definitely be speeding up your path to wealth. Next, there's clothing. We all like to look good, but millionaires in Corley's study did not break the bank to do so. They spent just 5% or less of their after-tax income when it comes to their wardrobe. Despite what the media will have you believe, millionaires don't spend wildly on designer brands and jewelry. It's quite the opposite, actually. While there are certainly extremely wealthy individuals who buy luxury brands and have extensive clothing collections, most millionaires wear generic clothing brands. This is one of the reasons why they blend so well into the overall population, and they do so because, as you know, it's better to be rich, not just look rich. Moving on, we have vacations. We all love time away from work, and what the millionaires in this study found was that enjoying these precious moments of life doesn't have to break the bank. Millionaires spent 5% or less of their after-tax income on vacations, and this is quite a stark difference from their middle-class counterparts. It's extremely common for a middle-class family to spend a relative fortune on an annual family vacation, whether it's a trip to Disney during school break or a tropical cruise. These are extremely expensive for the average household. For instance, it's not uncommon for family trips to Disney World to cost $10,000 or more for a family of 4. And if your household income is just $100,000, that's 10% that's gone in a flash. Saver investor millionaires, which is likely the type of millionaire you'll become, spend reasonable amounts of their net pay on vacations. They don't deprive themselves of travel and leisure, but they take modest, inexpensive vacations that don't cost so much that they have no money left over for future travel and other everyday expenses. Speaking of things that don't cost much, it costs nothing to subscribe. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and do that now. Then we have entertainment, an expense that can vary greatly from person to person. For the millionaires in this study, Entertainment consumed 10% or less of their after-tax incomes, and that money went towards things like going out to bars and restaurants, takeout, movies, music, books, and streaming services. These expenses are part of a balanced lifestyle but should be enjoyed in moderation, as adding 1 or 2 extra nights out a month can dramatically impact how much you can save and invest.